can't start the show without talking about a little bit of drama because there's always something when it comes to the 49ers in the media. A couple reports came out, but I wanted to talk about this one. There's a report that came out. I saw it on Outkick, but basically it was talking about Michael Lombardi, and he did an interview on Pat McAfee talking about that Kyle Shanahan actually got talked out of signing Tom Brady, and I believe that was in the offseason of 2020. And then also when it came to the draft, getting talked out of going with Mac Jones and ending up settling for Trey Lance. Now, these aren't necessarily new reports, Rohan, because we've heard of this obviously being tapped in quite a bit, but now it's making its national rounds for whatever reason. What did you think about this when you first heard it? What do you think about it now? Is there any smoke to this fire, or is this a whole lot of hoopla?
I mean, I think it's a whole lot of hoopla. Like, I don't know. I don't understand why we're grasping straws. And it's interesting, right? Because everybody knows about the Tom Brady rumors back then. And by tying in the Mac Jones, Trey Lance scenario with the Tom Brady rumors, I think what reporters are trying to do is trying to substantiate their claims based on something that people believed as a rumor could have been true back then. So that's kind of what I'm seeing right here, right? Obviously, we knew that Tom Brady, a San Mateo native, a guy from the Bay Area, in free agency in 2020, could have had the chance to sign with the San Francisco 49ers. But the 49ers, fresh off a Super Bowl run, stick with Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, did the 49ers and Tom Brady have discussions? Maybe, maybe not. We don't know. We also allegedly heard from, surprisingly, UFC guy Dana White on a stream that the Las Vegas Raiders actually were the team that Tom Brady likely was alluding to in that interview, that famous interview where he said, "You're going with that MRFer," you know what I mean? And so, like, there's so many like little dots just sprinkled out there, and people are trying to piece it together. I don't buy the hype. I think Trey Lance was his guy. And look, Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch signed 6-year extensions a little bit ago. Their jobs, it's not that their jobs are on the line, but their biggest first round pick is this pick here. And to think that they had all the options at their disposal and didn't go with the guy that they wanted because they were forced by ownership who recently gave a 6-year extension and have handed them the keys to do what they want, I don't think that that's true at all. And when you just go ahead and listen to what Kyle Shanahan was talking about earlier, he said how he likes quarterbacks that do appear like Mac Jones, right? You talk about Kirk Cousins, obviously Jimmy Garoppolo is in a similar mold. A lot of people have made that comparison. But when you look in 2020, I believe, when the 49ers played the Buffalo Bills, he was raving about the traits of Josh Allen. He's shown that he's liked guys like Lamar Jackson and Drew Brees before. And so Trey Lance is that quarterback that idolizes, I'm not going to say he's going to be one of those players, but he idolizes the traits that those players have. So to me, I don't think that the rumors are necessarily true. And I honestly think it's smoke heading into week 1.
Yeah, and it's interesting that it's coming out right now. I mean, it just goes to the same narrative that everybody's trying to pick at the 49ers as far as the media for whatever reason. I'm with you, Rohan. I think it's a lot of smoke. I mean, one thing about Kyle Shanahan, for anybody that pays attention to this team, is this dude is a stubborn dude. And I don't think he really gets talked out of too much. If he wants it to happen, it's going to happen. We've seen that in play calling. We've seen that in roster moves. We've seen that even last year when, maybe people were wanting him to make the move to Trey Lance because the team was struggling. He stuck with Jimmy Garoppolo because he said he was the day one starter. And he's held true to what he said he was going to do. We hear these stories about somewhere in the team that, he got talked out of it. Before it was the fan base talked him out of it, right? So it's like before it was a fan base, now it's somebody on the team that talked him out of it. Kyle Shanahan is the leader of this organization, the leader of this team. He does whatever he wants to do. And you mentioned it. He made the statement that his ideal quarterback would be somebody who could throw the ball like Drew Brees, and run the ball like Lamar Jackson. And obviously, that's high praise. Do we think Trey Lance is going to have those two attributes? Maybe not. But the fact that he was looking for somebody that not only had the arm strength and the ability in the pocket, like Drew Brees, but also is mentioning the athletic ability that he had in Lamar Jackson. Trey Lance, out of all of those quarterbacks, kind of fits that mold better than even a guy like Justin Fields, who I personally at that moment thought that, Justin Fields was going to be the guy. But Trey Lance has more of the understanding of the offense, playing under center, making calls at the line of scrimmage. He's more used to playing out of the pocket than Justin Fields was, who played mostly in shotgun. So it's like it makes a lot more sense when you understand exactly what Kyle Shanahan was saying. So I agree with you. I think it's a whole lot of nothing. Who knows why it's being brought up right now? Clearly, the 49ers gets clicks. So we see a lot of stories about it.
Yeah, and real quick before we continue with Emiliano's comments, to me, I think a lot of people, like you said, the 49ers, if you write some BS about the 49ers, I'm not saying that these reports are necessarily BS. We've seen a lot of things this offseason, right? We've seen the arm fatigue reports. We've seen everything. And I honestly think that some of them were probably true. But this one, I don't think that this one is a true argument. And the funny thing is people are willing to overlook what Kyle Shanahan has explicitly said when kind of factoring in the situation. There was one comment that I believe Kyle Shanahan was in a way out of line in saying, but I didn't necessarily look too much into it because I don't care. That was when he was talking on I Am an Athlete podcast with Brandon Marshall, and he said that the two I was looking at was Mac Jones and Trey Lance. And so obviously with the insurmountable amount of speculation back then about was Mac the guy, and then they got Kyle buried the hatchet and just said Trey Lance at 3. It adds flame to the fire, even if that flame is unwarranted. I think it's unwarranted. I thought that comment was not unnecessary, really. But overall, you just heard this press conference where Jimmy Garoppolo was there, and so was Trey Lance and Kyle Shanahan, right? What did Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch say? Trey Lance is our quarterback. A lot of people are overlooking this fact. He's the guy who wants Trey Lance there. Jimmy Garoppolo has been his 5-year starter. He could have brought Jimmy back he could have had Jimmy be the starter, right? Instead of had this offseason go the way they did. But instead, they mortgaged 3 first-round picks of their future so they could get Trey Lance. I don't understand the argument given the amount that they gave up, especially because we haven't seen him play. And when we have seen him play, while it's been inconsistent, you could definitely understand the potential. In my opinion, I don't think Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, Trevor Lawrence, or even who's the other one? Mac Jones necessarily. They've all had ups and downs. Mac Jones has had a pretty poor preseason if we're talking about it. The Patriots offense looks like it's taken a step back, which is not something you want to hear. Regression from a second-year quarterback. I'm not saying that he's going to regress. It's all these other quarterbacks have had these issues. And so to me, I don't think the 49ers are any better necessarily right now if they do go another route. Because we haven't seen Trey Lance play. I said this on draft night. I'll say it again. The 49ers are going to end up with the best quarterback in the draft because of the situation. I thought whoever they drafted, it was going to be the best quarterback in the draft, even if it was Mac Jones or Davis Mills. I know I just threw Davis Mills in there, but even if it was Mac Jones or Davis Mills, I thought it would have been the best quarterback in the draft. And so to me, I think it's just a bunch of smoke. And because the 49ers warrant a lot more attention compared to the other franchises where this similar activity is going on, that's why I think it's getting fires just being thrown into the flame a ton more with this situation.
Yeah, and I mean, it's wild how the most critiques are going to Trey Lance, who's played the least amount out of all of the quarterbacks that were drafted there, including Davis Mills, right? Davis Mills, we've seen him play a lot more than Trey Lance.
Obviously, even in college, Davis Mills was a starter in college for a good amount of time. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, even if we could talk about college. All these guys played in college way more than Trey. But even in the NFL, Lawrence started, Jones started, Wilson started, Justin Fields got half the season to start, and Davis Mills also played half the season as well. Trey is the only person that didn't get, any long-term run. We only got to see him start maybe 2.5 games he played in. But yeah, it's interesting that everybody has the most opinions about him. Emiliano is bringing something up. We don't need to jump on it too much, but I do want to get your opinions on it. It's a two-parter. Kind of weird that no one in the San Francisco media asked Kyle straight up, hey, Kyle, there's been a lot of speculation about Trey lately. If Jimmy's been brought in as QB2 because you're hesitant on Lance. And now there are reports that Mac was really your pick, but was talked out of it. What do you have to say? But nah, they like having this issue and line of questioning sit in the ether stagnation. So I guess the question is if Kyle why is Kyle not directly answering this question, or has he, in your opinion?
Honestly, I think he has. The Mac Jones question is different, but about the hesitancy on Lance, I don't think there is hesitancy on Lance, and I think he pretty much cleared up that they're going to stick with Trey Lance even if he's doing pretty poorly, and I think that that's important. When you talk about what's important in this season, your goal is to win a Super Bowl. You've got one quarterback on your roster whom I believe can get you there, while another one you've maxed out. Now, does that second quarterback not have any value? No, I think at his current price, I think he has value as a starting quarterback in the league that can likely get some teams to the playoffs. I'm not saying by himself, I'm saying just to the playoffs. And so to me, I think that Trey Lance, I think they're going to stick with him throughout, and I think that that's what Kyle Shanahan has indicated. As for the second part, was Mac really your pick but was talked out of it? Me personally, I don't care if this question's answered or not, because Kyle Shanahan's not going to give you is Kyle Shanahan going to come out and say, no, Mac Jones was my pick and I was talked out of it? No. So I don't think that question honestly has enough worth to be talked about. And also, guys, just real quick about the media, um, it's not that they're limited, but there are certain things that they are not allowed to ask. So while we love to blame the media, and some of the questions aren't great, let's be honest, some of the questions are just not great. It's also part of the 49ers for not allowing them to answer the questions because the 49ers are extremely secretive in that way.
Right. And I also believe that Kyle Shanahan really has a love-hate relationship with the media. And he's mentioned it where he's like, I'm not going to get in the way of the media creating whatever narratives they want to create. I think he feels like he's so above these questions about Trey Lance and who his pick was and all that kind of stuff. The fact that these guys would actually, I think if I'm Kyle Shanahan, with everything I've seen from him as far as how much control, there's been reports like people were saying he's too stubborn, too egotistical, not enough of a student mentality, all this kind of stuff. Now all of a sudden it's like he's not confident enough to be able to make a pick. He got talked out of it, all these kind of things. To me, I think Kyle Shanahan is just like, look, no matter what, people are going to say whatever they're going to say. So Emiliano, I think the reason why nobody asked him is part of what Rohan said. I don't think they're allowed to ask him. But two, even if he was asked that question, I think he just is like, dude, I made my pick. Why would I get talked out of picking somebody that I felt like was going to help my team win the most? And I think Trey was the pick regardless. It's up to us to believe it or not, agree with it, whatever. We could have our feelings, but at the end of the day, I think that's the closest we're going to get to the actual answer.